Greetings, dear friends. It's a conversation about the things innermost for every person, a revelation beyond time and space. This is exactly what people living in many countries of the world call the programs with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. And today, in Allat TV studio, we continue this sincere dialogue about the most important with Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. Greetings.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, many people note such a phenomenon that videos with your participation produce a special inner state. First of all, they feel a state of deep inner peace, grace, and then they come to understand those points which concern them. They also say that videos with your participation help them to maintain inner spiritual steadiness in their everyday life if they lose it for some reason. No matter how many times one views videos with your participation, every time this amazing inner state is experienced, every time new awareness comes and clarity is felt, despite the fact that these videos have been viewed many times. Due to this, numerous letters are received by Allat TV studio, which are very different, starting with sincere laconic thank you, an expression of one's deep inner feelings, and down to, let's say, questions from the mind, from arrogance, when the truth is being distorted by consciousness. There are a lot of letters when personality feels the truth, while consciousness rejects it, opposes it. Why does such an inner conflict actually arise?
You yourself have just answered. It's from the mind. As a rule, an inner conflict arises when a person, as they say, craves for one thing internally, while consciousness desires something else. Thus, such a discord arises.
Igor Mikhailovich, there is such an opinion that you are Agapit of Pechorsk.
Well, this is impossible. I am me. Moreover, there are remains of Agapit of Pechorsk in the caves. People are simply fantasizing. How can I be Agapit of Pechorsk? A simple question. I am me, and he is him.
It is also said that you are Archangel Gabriel.
Do you see me?
I do.
Here's the answer. I cannot be him, because angels are incorporeal, while I am, thank God, corporeal so far. This one is dismissed too.
There are also statements that you are from another planet.
Generally speaking, all of us are from different planets. In fact, if we look at what we are composed of remains of former stars and planets. So, this may exactly be the case. My body is also composed of such remains, and not from a single planet, but from various ones, planets, stars, and everything else, and yours too. So, the statement that we are from other planets, not just me, but all of us, it does have a ground. I mean, particles of which other stars and planets used to be composed. After such stars and planets disappear, disintegrate, those particles don't go anywhere, do they? Matter is matter. It is transformed from one state into another, and of that very dust we are formed. So, I don't argue against this one. We can say we are all aliens.
There is also a version that you are Rigdan Japo.
It's another mistake. Where is he? According to all legends, he must be in Tibet. And where am I? So,
here, near.
Yet, I'm interested in one thing. Why do people always pen some labels, give some names or something else? What's the difference? Why is my name worse? Well, I actually have nothing against. If someone doesn't like it, they may call me as they want. The essence won't change anyway.
Yes, indeed, people are troubled with the question, who are you in fact?
An ordinary human, just like everyone else. I have a name. You have called me by my name at the beginning of the program. So, well, how can people be troubled with the question, who I am, if you have answered it before, right?
And for those who feel?
Those who feel don't ask stupid questions from the mind, right?
Igor Mikhailovich, why do most people actually seek disunity instead of creation?
Well, I would say the issue of creation and disunity is more rhetorical. As a matter of fact, in our international movement, we also call everyone to unity. Generally speaking, is unity between all people on the planet possible in such a state as people are now? No, it's impossible. Why? Consciousness always divides. And there is a deep meaning in this, in principle. Let's consider, why does consciousness always disunite people? We talked a lot about this. And we'll further talk. Certainly, if people are interested, if they are not interested, we will talk between ourselves, because this subject is indeed delicate, and it is topical. Disunity always takes place because of human mind, because of consciousness. It always acts based on its internal egoism. The mind itself as the system, as a part of the system, of the whole, it always disunites people. Why? This way, it's easier to manipulate. When people live in Concord, it's difficult to rule them. They don't have such egoism and all other bad qualities as there are in people from, let's say, their first half. A human being is dual. Everyone knows this, right? As they say, there's the material and the spiritual nature in a human. Which one is the first in a human? What do you think?
The spiritual.
And everyone says so, whereas in fact, it's the material.
Because he resides here in this dimension.
Well, first, a vessel is born, and then wine is poured into it. But which one is the main? Question number 2. What is the main in a human being?
The Holy Spirit.
You've digressed again. I mean, the first or the second nature?
I know what the main is. Certainly the second one.
Certainly the second, although the first is the material one.
So, in actual fact, a human being comes into such conditions and has a material part in him that is stronger, right? Because it is sort of a vessel.
This is the world of matter. Naturally, matter runs the show here. Naturally, the human first part, which is material, into which human consciousness belongs. It predominates. And it prevails since birth. Firstly, it is older than the second, spiritual part, or component of a human, by 8 days, at least. Therefore, it's natural that it always aspires to dominate, like an elder brother over a younger brother, or an elder sister over a younger sister. This is surely a joke, but the system is aggressive indeed. I mean, the material system, and it always imposes, while the spiritual world never imposes. It is simply there. If you want, you will come. If you don't, that's your choice, right?
Like a beacon.
Absolutely right. It is simply like a beacon. If you see and desire, you sail to it. If you don't see, this means you don't know where to sail. Hence, you don't need it.
Can we say that any divisions taking place between people, for instance, in a group, in relationships,
Even within oneself.
even within oneself?
After all, a person only thinks that he is integral. In the previous program, we talked about viewers and actors, didn't we? So, a human is even internally divided. He is really divided. A person will never find peace within himself unless he finds reconciliation with God. For this very reason, there are such notions as protection, reconciliation, and so on in all religions. People sometimes simply don't think that reconciliation with God. But again, the idea of reconciliation with God does not imply that God has quarreled with a human. No, who is human and who is God? It would be the same as quarreling with your own dream that you caught a glimpse of God knows when. You see, no matter what megalomania tells some people about their importance and other things like that. Yet again, what is megalomania? It's a part of consciousness, a part of manipulation game with personality. The game of these actors with the viewer. Do you understand? Merely a game. But unless a person attains reconciliation, it's not God who is supposed to come to a person, but the person must come to God. And this is the main thing he should do.
Attain purity.
By all means, only in such case, he can come to feel the spiritual world and understand what God is and realize what God is. It's impossible to come even into a slight contact with that world without reconciliation, at least primary reconciliation with that world. Well, it's not actually reconciliation with that world. Reconciliation occurs inside oneself, with oneself, right?
You have just mentioned reconciliation. This is totally new, and it inspires because for some reason in all religions they talk about the state of struggle. Internal struggle with oneself, struggle with the devil.
No. Struggle is indeed mentioned everywhere quite often. However, reconciliation is often mentioned as well. You see? That is, in all religions, reconciliation is ascertained, first and foremost, in various words, in various ways, but the essence is the same. In order for a person to come into contact with that world and to feel, at least a little bit, what it is, I'm not even talking about getting to know that world or something else. He needs reconciliation, meaning he needs to become himself, to become whole. And how can a person become whole? Many people say one needs to unite with one's consciousness, one's mind. There are ideas like this too. At that, a person becomes whole when he becomes a part of that world after an initial reconciliation, after an initial experience. This means to become whole. In Allatra, fusion of personality with the soul is described. What does it mean? It doesn't actually mean that we take tea, pour it into a cup, and they fuse. Well, there is such an image. This is matter. Anyway, if we talk about this, we will be guided by what? By matter. While we are now talking about that which is far from being material. And in our understanding, non-material means empty. Well, we have touched upon another interesting topic, empty. Many people say, and even physicists, argue and write about this. Pardon me, astrophysicists, not ordinary physicists, that there is vacuum, emptiness in the universe. Yet, there is no emptiness. That's the point. There is no absolute void anywhere in the material world. There is not even a single, tiniest point where the thinnest needle, say a hypodermic one, could be stuck in without touching anything. There is no emptiness at all. Let's take space vacuum, the absolute void. But what about gravitational waves? I don't even speak of other waves, okay? Radio waves, diverse radiations and everything else. Waves are everywhere. Suffice it to place a microphone, and we will hear a sound. Well, I'm surely exaggerating. No sound is transferred in vacuum. Of course, I understand this. And we wouldn't be able to record on a microphone there. I am speaking figuratively. In other words, whichever place in the universe we take, any tiny point in our seemingly enormous universe, there's always something there. Although it doesn't always have a form which we are accustomed to. We are accustomed to material things. There's a teapot, here it is. It is here, and it occupies a certain volume. If we take it away, hence there will be emptiness. Well, there cannot be emptiness. There is air, and so on. There's always something. And what about light? Light fills the space as well. However, this is only the visible spectrum that we can see, while there are also diverse invisible radiations and all the rest. The entire space is filled everywhere. Thus, there is no emptiness in this world.
And in that world,
there is no emptiness in that world all the more.
Fullness.
Of course, despite the boundlessness. Again, we touch upon the subject which consciousness won't understand, it won't perceive it. And when it doesn't perceive, what does it do? It rejects. And there arises what?
Internal confrontation.
Surely. That's why many people don't understand us, you see? So again, we come back to what? To reconciliation. Yet, why don't they understand us? Because they lack inner reconciliation, first and foremost, with their part, with the spiritual world, so to say.
How can a person get reconciled within oneself?
The thing is that not everyone needs this, although it is sorrowful. Hardly everyone wants this. Personality, I mean, the viewer, whom we mentioned in our previous conversation, always seeks. A human being has personality, always seeks the spiritual world, and consciousness always replaces this aspiration with material things. Hence, there is a fight for human attention. Many will fail to understand again and say, well, attention, what does this have to do with attention? Well, attention is the energy of life. Attention is actually life. This is exactly that part, as you have mentioned, the Holy Spirit, and it's a part of the power inherent in personality as, let's say, a certain reflection of the spiritual world, which may become a part of that world. Right? Attention is exactly the power that creates life.
So people simply direct attention at wrong things, even sometimes when they direct it at certain creative activities, correct?
Let's take even creative, very good, activities. If these activities are carried out with the mind, they won't take a person to the spiritual world. These activities are splendid. They are wonderful. They help people, and they should be carried out. Basically, this is what the brain must be occupied with. Our consciousness must be busy with good deeds and good thoughts. One shouldn't let there anything sorrowful or bad, that which feeds consciousness more. Now let's examine how many good, positive emotions a person experiences from consciousness and how many emotions are doleful or bad. How long a person stays in reconciliation. Well, not in reconciliation, but rather in peace. Let's say in inner rest. And how much time during the day he spends arguing and conflicting in his consciousness. Thus, let's go back to our theater. Personality as a viewer and thoughts as actors. How much of good, positive things do they show us, and how much of negative things? There is always more of the negative. Why is there more of the negative?
Well, it is sort of brighter.
Outbursts are brighter. And why are outbursts brighter? Because we invest more attention. That's the point. So it's banal economics.
That is, indeed, in everyday life, lots of good, light moments actually take place.
It depends on what you look at. When you feel good inside, when you, let's say, with God, naturally, you see everything good here as well. But when there is sorrow inside, when a person is in an argument with himself, he will naturally notice everything bad and nasty in this world too. Like attracts like. This has been said since long ago.
So, one should be impressed with the spiritual world.
One shouldn't be impressed with the spiritual world. One should live by the spiritual world. As for being impressed, it's again, actors have shown a scene and we've got impressed. That is why many people got impressed with a certain scene. Something resonated with their inner spiritual needs somewhere, and they went to some religion or other place. Doesn't matter. They went there once, twice, 3 times, 5 times. They looked, prayed there, or meditated. It doesn't matter what exactly they did. They performed certain actions or rituals, and after a while, they got bored with it. Consciousness won, and they left. While inside, they feel grief. This is exactly the impression, as you say. As a matter of fact, when a person feels a need, precisely a spiritual need, when his viewer, or rather, he as a viewer, gets tired of his actors, he simply stands up and goes. Everything is simple. And again, many people say that it's difficult to get to know that world. It's difficult to, well, actually, our consciousness is unable to get to know that world. We have already talked about this a lot. When a person tries to understand or learn something with consciousness, where does he arrive at? At magic. Therefore, it all eventually ends. If aspiration or desire to get to know the spiritual world originates from consciousness, it ends with possession of a certain gift, a gift that gives power over other people. Nothing but this. Well, and what is power over other people? It's an illusory state which quickly ends along with life, the life of this body, and everything else. It's just stupid to waste time on such things.
Do people realize that they have such an inner substitution or not?
This has been from time immemorial. They certainly realize. Let's take any spiritual literature, by any, I mean literature, from different religions, and read what saints faced in all denominations, in all religions. They were actually going through the same things as present-day people do when they embark on the spiritual path. They face the same problems of consciousness and fight with the same demons. You have also mentioned that people are in struggle. But the struggle is inevitable. It's the primary Armageddon until a person achieves reconciliation. What is struggle? Struggle is opposition to one's own actors. When actors on the stage impose, "Hey, look at me," no, another one shouts, "Look at me," while the person doesn't want to look at them. He's already tired of their cinema. He simply wants to live. Beyond this theater of the absurd, there's actually an immense world. Imagine, you are sitting in a room and you have a couple of dozens of actors who permanently show you this chaos, while there is a wonderful world outside. Well, you've got interested and stayed for an hour or 2. You will get tired, won't you? Even consciousness gets tired. You will anyway want to see the world, to see the grass, the sun, a little bird, or something else. You will want that. You yearn for it. while here you have the same actors. A stout, big man performs a role of a thin blade of grass. Pardon me, he imitates the blade and imposes it on you. You do see the discrepancy, don't you? In the same way, personality feels such discrepancies and substitutions, and it also wants and aspires, just like you would aspire to go outside and see that very blade of grass instead of the stout man who imitates it,
When you
right?
come into contact with the spiritual world, when you feel this grace, you no longer agree to anything less. Does personality always strive only for this from that moment on?
It does. And there is an interesting point here. Very many saints describe that. Even Silouan, the Athonite, whom we mentioned last time. We spoke a lot about him, but let's refer to him again. When he was already old, he said that several times in his life he had come into contact with that world, and then he was trying to restore that contact throughout his life. There is a question though, who prevented him from living by that world? Demons, again. Where did he get stuck? He got stuck in struggle, in banal struggle. Thus, he needed a whole life to understand that there is no need to struggle. One should just live. But in order to understand that you should live, you first need to struggle. That's how paradoxically everything's arranged.
And what are the tools in this struggle to overcome with love?
As a matter of fact, the tool, let's say, there are many tools offered to personality, but most of them are from the mind. Well, if your consciousness has given you a tool against itself, believe me, this tool will work against you. This is similar to a situation when your actors would tell you as a viewer how to get rid of them. They would say, pay more, fasten yourself to your seat tighter, and you'll get rid of us. Well, you certainly won't get rid of them, right?
So the tools are totally beyond the plane of consciousness, aren't they?
Surely, they are. The first thing people do, the reason why the struggle begins, is that they explore themselves. Everyone follows this path. It just cannot be otherwise. Until you understand that your consciousness plays evil tricks on you, in fact, and that many things which it shows to you and which you used to consider real are not actually real. Well, it's merely a fight for your attention. Until you realize this, you won't understand more, right? Thus, you have to struggle, whether you want this or not. You have to observe yourself, to comprehend, to study, meaning to explore yourself. If we again take a description of the path of any saints, I'll repeat myself again. All of them undergo this. First, they become aware of their demons, or let's call them thoughts, consciousness, or evil spirits. Well, people called them differently. Certainly, there is a gradation. There are demons and evil spirits. For convenience, let's divide them so that it is clear for our viewers, since for them, we are also a part of the three-dimensional world. Well, like material people who are sitting and talking about this. So, here we have the same, right? Personality is like a viewer, and consciousness is like actors on the stage. There are fatter actors. There are stouter ones. Well, there are also directors and producers of this whole thing. Hence, we can divide them into evil spirits, demons, and those who are superior among them by their ranks.
So, in this material world, there is a hierarchy.
Everyone wants to eat. That's exactly the problem. You have just mentioned hierarchy. And just note how important hierarchy is in the material world, and how consciousness seeks to build a hierarchy in the spiritual world as well, while there is no hierarchy there. That's the paradox. Consciousness doesn't understand how something can emerge without a hierarchy. Well, it can. At that, how can people unite in this world if we have everything based on hierarchy? We don't have it based on equality, because somebody tries to dominate someone else. We have discussed many times that these are the laws of matter, and we cannot avoid them. Why is it so difficult for humanity to achieve unity? It is very hard, even in a small collective, in small groups. This is exactly due to the fact that some people try to command others, while others have to obey. The world of hierarchy. Whereas in the spiritual world, there's a concept of, let's say, responsibility, speaking in our language. One either assumes or doesn't assume responsibility. Well, it's like in the process of service. They say service to the spiritual world. Going back to religions, let's say There are many ideas of this kind. This doesn't mean that a person dedicates his entire life to service to God by changing his clothes, changing his name, and performing prayers every day, thinking he serves God. But again, who utters this prayer inside the person? Who has put these clothes on? And who has changed the name? In actual fact, the theater name has been changed. The theater has been repainted in a different color. Curtains have been changed inside, and actors have started telling him prayers. They are simply uttering them from the stage while he remains a little child and keeps sitting in his chair just like before, sitting and watching with his dreams and desires. He wants toys, he wants ice cream, he wants, and wants, while the actors are telling him stories. Does this have anything to do with God?
Although a lot of viewers ask questions about the service, and so...
You have confused me. Which viewers do you mean?
Not on the stage.
Just kidding.
In their letters, our viewers who watch us ask numerous questions about the service. And here is what the question is about. The question is whether a person should himself aspire, for instance, to become a Giliar, or should he rely on God's will in all this?
No. What does God's will mean? To shift responsibility to someone else. It has always existed, in principle, from time immemorial. People always rely on somebody's will. It will happen as it will happen. Or many people, in any situations, say, "Tell me, what should I do? Why do people behave so?" Simply, what should I do now? Well, these are actually your questions and your problems. Why do you ask what you should do? In order to shift responsibility to somebody else and to do nothing yourself. It's the same thing as, again, our viewer is sitting in the theater of life, in quotes, residing here, and his actors ask each other, "What should I do?" instead of him. You see? And so he chooses where to invest the power of his attention in order to implement one or another material action. Well, with God, it will not work this way. By the will of God, the whole world gets manifested and disappears. The rest is done by people. It's your choice. The topic of service. Service may be different. Even a word, a simple word spoken, let's say among people, in defense of the spiritual world, is already a service. Reviling, even a small one, is already in opposition. Sinfulness, right? Again, we touch upon what sinfulness is. Well, different people interpret it differently, but the point is that a human is sinful. Even if he has done nothing wrong, he's a sinner, sort of from the beginning. Yet, if we look at it in a simple way, what is sinfulness? Sinfulness is precisely indulgence to those actors on the stage and financing them at the expense of your own attention when they are living your life. You see? That's exactly sinfulness. Well, what do you need? Reconciliation. You see? And not with them. They won't go anywhere. They will serve you while you are here until your last day. This doesn't relate to the material world. This relates to the individual spiritual path of a person, so that my words are not misinterpreted. The less you finance them, the better they serve you. But again, this doesn't apply to actors who really perform in this world on big stages. The more you finance them, the better they perform. While this relates to the inner work on yourself and the work with your demons or evil spirits, you can call them whatever you want, should take place exactly in the economical mode. You should finance only what you need. Then, nothing unnecessary will come to your head. It will slip by, but as a shadow on the window. Shadows don't irritate you, do they? They just slip by, and that's all. Whereas if you need something, you do pay attention. But again, it's you who needs it. You see, you can do the same way as with a computer, although the human brain is much more sophisticated than any computer.
Although the speed of the processes in comparison with
It's much lower than a computer has, yes, and the memory capacity is much smaller. It is really much smaller, yes, and the weight of the gray matter doesn't play any role.
Despite all this, there remains an open question in science. Where do all discoveries, hypotheses,
Thoughts.
and thoughts that lead a man to his sufferings, so to say, come from?
Well, why to sufferings? Not all hypotheses and thoughts lead to sufferings. Some lead to admirations, self-love, pride, and the like. A person makes a discovery, and later, during his life, he uses it. He travels, and he's satisfied with everything. Everybody recognizes him, and sometimes it is deserved. That's normal. But where do they come from? From consciousness. From where else?
However, there is no consciousness in the human body. Regarding this point, it's already a well-known fact that consciousness is not in the human body. And that very Archbishop Luca, the surgeon Wojno Jasenecki, compared the brain to a telephone station. He said that the role of the brain is limited to a message release only, meaning it adds nothing to what it receives.
It's like he answered in the court when they told him, "You perform surgeries. You are a surgeon. Have you seen God?" He said, "No. When I was doing surgeries, I didn't see God, but I also operated on the human brain and saw neither human conscience nor the mind there." So, all this is beyond the boundaries.
It's just that people are probably unaware of the fact that
They have never thought about this. Why? Consciousness actually doesn't like to think about this. People start thinking about it, even when they begin to perform practices, right? We know a lot of such people. He practices for a day or two, and on the third day, he gets bored. Consciousness already takes the lead. Actors arrange a demonstration in his consciousness. They already demand something else from him. He begins to finance their demonstrations and follows their lead as a viewer.
so one needs sort of a spiritual zeal, right?
No, you don't need a zeal. Any zeal is exactly an additional feed for demons there, in your head. What for?
Meaning it's again the struggle, isn't it?
These are different things. The material world and the spiritual world are distinct.
Not to fuss over one's sins, over one's patterns, right?
It depends on what a person chooses, you see? Some people, on the contrary, enjoy fussing. They like it. It is their game. That's how they burn their lives.
Meaning they philosophize and...
From the evil one.
Yeah. So, even while figuring out some typical patterns, they simply execute.
The study of patterns is necessary. I'm saying once again, it's necessary to observe oneself. Why is it necessary? In order to make consciousness drive itself into a deadlock, then personality becomes freer. It's very difficult for a person to understand who he is and distinguish in this chaos in his head who is the observer, who is the viewer. This is really difficult. That's why it's necessary to study oneself. Who thinks? Where does a thought come from? How can I stop it? Then, one fine day, a person realizes that he is personality, that he's exactly the one who can stop or accept these thoughts, forms, and all the rest. And then he can already control, that is, to develop any talent. It's easy, but the question is whether it is worth spending time on something. If you have another, more developed talent, right? For instance, since birth, there is an inclination to music, songs, or something else. So, why do you need to study how to lay asphalt properly? A simple question. It's also a talent. Any work, any profession requires diligence, takes time, and everything else. It is clear that if life forces you, you'll have to do that. Yet, why waste time on it? Everyone should just occupy themselves with their own. A musician should deal with music. A builder should deal with construction. That's when everything will be the way it should be in this world, right?
So, whatever you do, the most important thing is that you...
It doesn't matter what you do in this world. It's much more important what will happen after this world. What do you do for that which will be after this world, after its termination? It ends very quickly, in fact. Time is running fast. It's the most fleeting substance. It's impossible to hold it.
I would like to ask a question regarding here and now.
Well, we simultaneously. It's not interesting with you in this respect. Go ahead. Voice it.
People don't understand what does the moment of here and now mean.
People don't know this, actually. People don't understand what here and now is. It was said much about it before us and after us. I hope people will talk about this. What is here and now? Until a person achieves reconciliation, he will not understand what now is, because any now, even while I started pronouncing the word now, I have transferred from the past to the future. I've jumped over. It is constant running after the future. We have already discussed many times that a human lives by the past and the future. He doesn't live now. Consciousness doesn't have such function. It doesn't realize what now is. Why? Because consciousness is a part of the material world. And since it's a part, it represents matter, and information is embedded in it. That's all. Here, no one will even argue. I mean, no reasonable person will, since everyone understands very well consciousness is information, first of all, while information is matter. Whichever way we look at it, and since it is matter, it is subject to all the material laws to a certain extent. It makes no difference whether it is beyond the quantum state or in a quantum state, it is still matter. And since it is matter, it is located in a certain point. Since it is located in a certain point, hence it is moving, along with everything that is moving. And in our case, everything is moving. Thus, while we are talking, we have passed very many kilometers, thousands. If we look broader, we have covered a few million kilometers within a short period of time. Why? In total, the globe is rotating, and our consciousness is tied to our matter. And, once again, to the point of our location as of material objects on a material object, the planet. Yet, the planet is rotating, and it is revolving around the sun. And our solar system is revolving altogether at a great speed, being on the arm of the galaxy, and the galaxy is flying too. However, consciousness doesn't perceive this, although it is constantly moving. Constant movement in a great speed, whereas a thought is slow. It's not speedy. While it is born, while it comes through, a lot of kilometers have been flown. While we paid our attention, while we perceived it, and it became matter, a material object, right? After all, it is given to us as a banner, just as a picture. Then we unfold it, and it comes to us on a full scale. It goes from the beginning to the end, incessant movement. It moves from the past into the future, becoming the past by itself immediately. There is no present. Thus, consciousness really cannot understand what the present is, what here is. Why? Because everything is finite in this world, and everything is at a great speed. Yet, once a person achieves this reconciliation and feels the world of God, what does he discover? First of all, he discovers what now is. Everything just stops. There is no movement, and it's amazing. There is only now. There is neither tomorrow nor yesterday. That's the point.
So consciousness simply offers some false replacements to people, I don't know, some kind of contemplations.
It just works. It wants to eat.
Igor Mikhailovich, it turns out that people don't live by the spiritual world during the day, but listen to those actors on the stage who permanently palm off scenarios of some spiritual experiments on them, meaning they suggest that people move from one religion to another.
I understand what you are saying. You mean that it's exactly the need of people. That's why many people travel, explore various religions, study various practices, and so on. Eventually, they get sad for the fact that for so many years they have been traveling, studying with different lamas, Buddhas, and the like. But then, as it turns out, it's as if they haven't been anywhere. I will explain all this in order to clarify why it happens. Why? A person spends a lot of time sort of engaging in spirituality, in quotes, but he doesn't become a spiritual person. Let's look at this. Using the model that we've been talking about during the second program already, I mean, actors on the stage, and you as personality, a viewer, sitting in the hall. It turns out that it's not you who is seeking the spiritual path. You have an aspiration. You feel that this is necessary, and this is true. You do feel it. But your consciousness, that is, your demons or actors, they simply play it. You see, they play spirituality. It turns out they engage in spiritual search instead of you. They engage in meditations. They say, look, you are already Buddha. You are already not even an angel. You are Buddha. You are already a bodhisattva, or even something more. What do you need more, right? We will come back to this point later. Yet, what is actually happening? You are actually sitting just like you were sitting before. You keep watching your actors, your thoughts, just like you were watching. But I'm saying again, the only one who can leave this theater and come into contact with the spiritual world is you, as the viewer, meaning as personality. But for the actors, the path there is closed. That's why they take offense. While again, the law of matter is a fight for power. Therefore, consciousness never misses an opportunity, let's say, to manifest its power and to command personality. That's what actually happens. They give a little bit instead of true feelings. Instead of perception of that world, they palm off some light contacts and emotions. And a person, let's say, having watched this action, takes it as the truth for a certain period of time.
So consciousness, sort of like in a game, gives away pawns in order to mate.
Absolutely right. To actually checkmate, just like that. After all, for consciousness, the state of subpersonality is much more beneficial. For personality, it's not beneficial. For personality, it means death. While for consciousness, it means prolongation of its existence. And it's interesting for the system. Again, why? Because that which is called hell, or it is called the state of subpersonality, doesn't matter. The thing is that our consciousness as a part of this demonic world, or no matter how else we call it, a part of the material world, in fact, it continues to exist even after. And this is interesting for it. It gets fed.
It manipulates the spiritual, doesn't it?
It manipulates everything because consciousness has nothing sacred. And again, we have discussed many times why that very consciousness which tells the viewer, the personality, meaning it tells you that you have already become a bodhisattva, but immediately makes you spit on everything holy and reject everything holy. Right? What does it provoke in you? Pride, self-conceit, thoughts of how spiritually enlightened you are? Really? Well, there are many examples of that. For instance, an example of that may be Reverend Zosima and his experience of existence since his childhood. He was thinking that he was already a monk, that he was serving God, and so on. Since childhood, he was walking and even believed that others were not worthy even to talk to him because he was serving God. He was his representative. Well, until he actually encountered a man who was really serving God. Then he realized whom he had been listening to all his life. He was listening to the same actor who was telling him about pride, and there are a lot of cases like this.
I would like to proceed to the following topic. Viewers also ask a question: how to live by the spiritual world, to live as a spiritual being during the day.
How to live? Through consciousness, it won't work, for sure. Yet, such questions come from consciousness, and it's impossible for a person to just start immediately living by that world, you see? But on the other hand, it's much easier than it seems. There are still stages. In any case, there are stages of self-exploration. The main thing is not to prevent the viewer from going towards the exit of this theater. You should just get up, understand that you are the viewer, stop watching and listening to what they are telling you, and make them tell you only what you need. That's in the first place. And in the second place, you get up and go towards the exit and see how wonderful the world is. You go outside and live. I would put it this way.
These stages on the spiritual path, does a person feel that he is going through these stages?
And what do you think? Does a person feel these stages?
He feels.
Why do you keep asking me all the time? Let me ask you. Go ahead, tell me. What does a person feel going through the stages? How does a person understand that he needs to follow the spiritual path?
Because what you feel becomes much more real than what is happening in three-dimensionality.
Okay, but what do you feel? A person says, what am I supposed to feel? So what do you feel?
Well, I'm now afraid to speak in three-dimensional words because
it's difficult to take a basket of stones and describe the air with them, isn't it?
if we talk about that burning love which is inside, people will stir it up physically somehow.
It's an interesting point. You are now saying burning love, right? And exactly, this fiery love, burning love, was described. In fact, you again say the same words that many saints were speaking in. Those who even didn't read about this, they didn't know it, they didn't repeat. After all, this was mentioned, even recorded after some saints who were illiterate, who were hermits. They never read works of any kind. They followed their intuition. They proceeded from the internal. They overcame their demons, put things in order on the viewer's stage, and just went out, you see, of this cinema or theater of shadows into the world and started living. Later on, people made records after them, and so they were all talking about fiery love. That's interesting, or the heat of love. It cannot be described otherwise. It is what a person feels and experiences. But again, what can consciousness say?
It can attach it to the body.
Describe ordinary heartburn as a state.
Or look for these processes in the physical body.
In the physical body, absolutely right. Thus, a person will begin, like, so, heat should be inside me, some type of burning should be inside me, and I should love something. Understand? It's like such a gastronomic love for any spicy dish, and then the torment from the heat inside. That is it.
There is also an interesting sense of simplicity, but simplicity in the meaning of integrity.
And we again touch upon a very interesting point. It's very simple. It is so simple that some people have to spend their whole life to understand it and feel it. But in fact, it is very simple, and the most important thing is that it is holistic. A person coming into contact with the spiritual world, even slightly, having acquired an initial experience like many people, like that very Silouan was describing, and many, many other saints, whoever we would take, they all describe the integrity of that world, its indivisibility. And why does personality long for it so much? Why does personality feel it? It's an enormous power. And we cannot say that it is static. It is living. Does a person lose his individuality there? No. But at the same time, he is united with everyone. It's like a drop of water in the ocean. Do you understand? In its entirety, it is the ocean, but a drop is separate. Well, okay, let's not take a drop, but a molecule of water. But at the same time, it is quivering along with the entire ocean.
We've just touched upon the subject of spiritual individuality.
Yes, it worries many people. And who worries about it? Consciousness worries. After all, consciousness, which constantly divides, is the one that says, you will go there and get mangled. Don't go to religion. They will turn you into a zombie. No one will ever turn a human into anything unless he wants it. Nowhere. Meanwhile, there are numerous roads to God. There are no bad religions. There are bad people in these organizations, just like everywhere. And again, why are people bad? Because they live by the mind. While the mind divides. The mind makes them greedy. It makes them selfish. It kills everything sacred in them and enslaves them. And they start exploiting religion just for themselves. Yet, is religion to blame here? After all, in any religion, there are many good people as well, right? I would say good people always constitute the prevailing majority in any religion. Otherwise, it would just cease to exist. People would not be attracted there, right? So, you can reach the goal everywhere. The main thing is to know whether you want it or not. The same applies to the matter of service. We have touched upon the topic of service. What does it mean? Does everyone need it? Service may be different, you see. For instance, a person is spreading the word of God. He's already serving. It's really the service. A person is doing good, unselfishly, some good to another person. He already serves the spiritual world. After all, he resists evil. He resists aggression. But there are other kinds of service. They are greater, but not everyone needs those kinds of service. This is really true. It's an internal need. Here, a person already chooses whether to serve or not to serve. When he is ready to renounce everything, to undertake such a burden of the real service, like you have mentioned, Galiars or something else. What is a Galiar, in fact? If we look into this, we once had programs where we were talking about the states of confrontation. First of all,
is establishment of the order, so to say, in oneself and in others. I would compare it to a kind of supervisory body that puts things in order among the actors. You see, I don't know whether there are such authorities or not, but they should be, right? Somewhere in the Ministry of Culture or the like, who exactly supervise distribution of funds so that some actors are not paid more than they deserve. I mean, the actors who play evil spirits and demons, well, something like that. However, not everyone needs it, far from everyone. Yet, everyone needs to go ahead and get out of this theater of shadows.
Igor Mikhailovich, is already the second program in which we talk about Siluan the Athonite, and I looked through the literature and found interesting expressions by him. It would be interesting if you comment on some of them.
It's inappropriate to comment, but let's try it. Okay, I think I will be forgiven.
It happened so that the grace of the Holy Spirit left me, and I felt like an animal in the human body. I didn't forget God with the mind, but the soul became empty like that of an animal. I began to repent, and grace came back.
Many people experience such states as he describes when they only begin to really work on themselves, not to sit as a viewer in a chair, but get up and go. During a certain period, when they are moving towards the exit, they get distracted by actors on the stage, turn around, start paying attention, and forget where they should go. They sit down on another seat and keep sitting, listening to them. Then they recall, but it turns out it is empty inside. That's what it is. The soul became empty. When he gave such an example, this, first and foremost, evidences that the man really had a true experience, and he was really working on himself. Many people do experience that. Why? Because it gets blocked, and a person feels emptiness inside. He doesn't feel this connection. Surely, the soul cannot be empty, especially like that of an animal, since animals have no soul. He simply expressed his feelings in three-dimensional terms, but he expressed them absolutely rightly and correctly, meaning the dominance of consciousness and the loss of spiritual life occurred at that particular moment. And he began to repent. What is meant here? It means he returned to the feelings and started working again until this grace came back. This really confirms that the person's experience was genuine.
Moreover, the pain of the loss of this grace stimulates you to ensure that
you don't lose it anymore.
Right.
It feels bad without it, but it can be understood only by the one who had it once, at least once, who came into contact with it at least a little bit. But until a person comes into contact with the spiritual world, he will never understand this value. For him, it is something transcendental, something strange, something that exists somewhere. You know, it's like a fuss behind a closed door. It seems to exist, however, it does not. People say, but you haven't seen it yourself, while a person can appreciate only what he knows, his own experience, personality, especially when it has been the viewer its entire life. It doesn't understand and doesn't know this. It feels this need, it feels this craving, but it doesn't know how valuable it is. Yet, once it experiences even a small sip of this boundless freedom and this burning love, as we've been saying, once it touches it at least a little bit, well, thereafter, without it, even one moment seems to be eternity.
God is here. You feel the spiritual world and you don't need to go anywhere. Yet people build some labyrinth all the time, some long ways, while he's already here in the dialogue waiting.
This is actually consciousness, right? It's like we have talked before, that actors begin to show you scenes of how you engage in spirituality. And we spoke in the previous program. I brought my friends as an example. When they were climbing up the mountains to meditate in their spiritual quest and similar things, who sent them there? Those same actors did. You see, their consciousness, thoughts, they make people wander from one place to another, drive them everywhere, but don't bring to God. That's the trouble. However, a person is busy, and it turns out that personality feels an aspiration for God, but consciousness makes substitutions. Therefore, it makes people wander back and forth from one church to another, somewhere else. What's the difference? God is inside. He just is. The main point is to seek Him instead of changing plot lines on the stage.
St. John the Apostle said that God's commandments are not burdensome, they're easy, but they're easy through love only, whereas if there is no love, everything is difficult.
Absolutely. He precisely said that commandments. What are God's commandments? In fact, if a person has come into contact with the spiritual world and lives by that world, he will not break them. He won't do anything bad from what the commandments say. Why would he? He doesn't have such a need. That's why he follows these commandments. And they are not easy. They are natural. You see, it is just normal.
We've touched upon the topic of commandments. There's the commandment, love your neighbor. Unfortunately, when people try to love their neighbor from consciousness,
it's impossible. There will be some material interest anyway. Again, it's impossible. Just like unification of all people at the level of consciousness, consciousness will always divide. It will still tell everyone, you are actually better, okay? Let's make friends. People will tolerate each other, but they will hate internally. Consciousness will divide them anyway, and it will still intrigue. It will still be telling that you are better while they are bad. They are to blame for everything while you are good. A human will never find reconciliation with his consciousness. It's impossible. Consciousness can be tamed, but one should understand that consciousness is like a wild animal. I would compare it to a bear. It is quiet and gentle as long as you feed it. However, a beast is a beast. Once you turn away, it will attack when you don't expect it. That's why it's better to keep it behind bars so that it doesn't attack.
in such case, how can people follow this commandment? What is true love for a neighbor?
And what is true love for a neighbor? And who is the neighbor? Just like that. What unites all people? Nothing but the spiritual world. Matter separates us, while the spiritual world unites us. If you love God, if you know God's love, you will love everyone. Even if a person is far from being spiritual, you will at least understand him. Understand why he did this or that. What actor showed him a scene at that moment, what the scene was, and why he acts one way or another way. Meanwhile, you won't make any mistakes. However, this doesn't mean that if someone slaps you on the left cheek, you should turn the right one to him. What was meant is that a person isn't guilty, he's controlled by demons, and so on. Okay, let's leave out this topic.
So, is it support of the neighbor who's also on the spiritual path, if we speak of a group of people who follow the spiritual path?
If we speak of a group of people who, or about friends, mates, with whom you go along the spiritual path, then yes. But I want to say that you still go on your own. That's the point. No matter how many people go near or together with you along the spiritual path, you still go on your own. And the responsibility is with you anyway. Companions beside you may turn away, may go ahead, may fall behind, but this is their choice of whom they listen to and what they do. This is, perhaps, the most intimate relationship that can be imagined, a person's relationship with the spiritual world. Although, I wouldn't call it intimate either, because in our understanding, such relationship must be between two, while there, one has a relationship with infinity. But again, one as personality.
There is another question that people ask, the notion of a clever personality.
Not clever, but adult. After all, human personality, in fact, and we've already raised this issue, its development stops at the age of 5 to 6 years, and that's all. Then consciousness starts, let's say, dominating him to a great extent until 5 to 6 years of age. They both develop almost identically, and many people have a question. What is a clever personality? Are they mature personality or not?
Well, a person may be a Nobel Prize laureate. He may know all about everything, may be just perfect in our material world, but this only indicates that his actors are well educated, while he as a viewer, as personality, remains a child inside. And in order to change this, he should exactly work and develop himself. However, first of all, he has to find the child in this chaos. I would compare this. Imagine a ball, well, even not a ball, but a modern nightclub with a lot of people, music, where everyone does God knows what. Somewhere there on the floor, a child is running around, and you have to find him in this crowd.
How to combine such notions as be adult and be like children?
With God, people are always like children. Why? This is openness. Again, to be like children doesn't mean to be as children. It means to remain a child. To be a child. To be a child means to be open, to be exactly in that purity and faith. Why? Because I emphasize not everyone, but the prevailing majority of children under 5 years old do have this true love. Children may be greedy, evil, because one part is evident and the other one is evident. They love sincerely, you see. Yet again, how do they love? One part loves matter, while the other part loves the inner. This is felt. You know it yourself. For others, I need to explain that children feel it, whereas later, when they grow a bit older, when consciousness begins to dominate, they lose this inner feeling. Yes, he's a sincere child, and everything is fine. Everything is wonderful, but that childlike purity, that surge is no longer there.
Thus, personality needs consciousness for analysis, for certain insights,
For communication in this world,
for communication.
only for the three-dimensional world. Let's say, can personality think the same way as we think? Mental category is when thoughts come. We ponder, evaluate, think. Yet, does it have such a function? It all just exists. Personality doesn't need that. This function is irrelevant. It is here that in order to know what is inside the teapot, we need to open the lid. Does personality need to do this? Here's the answer.
Personality doesn't need this teapot at all.
That's what I mean. How can this be explained to people? There are a lot of things inaccessible to consciousness in this world. I don't even talk about other worlds. They are completely concealed from our consciousness. We can guess, we can ponder, but our actors will always argue with each other about what they can neither see nor touch. Well, they are materialists, while personality, especially when it gets out of this theater, becomes a part of the world that exactly creates such worlds. And all these programs, speaking the language of IT, which are made from our material world, who actually writes them? Here's the answer.
There is also an expression by Silo and the Athonite that conceited mind cannot be cleansed of thoughts and imagination. I'd like to talk about purity.
If you want to be cleansed, go and wash yourself. Such a simple answer. I'm surely joking. What does it mean? Conceited mind cannot be cleansed.
Cannot be cleansed.
Well, the very notion of conceit is already a notion of sinfulness, isn't it? If we use the category of sin, it's the material mind, while cleansed means cleansed of matter, purified of matter. Of course it cannot be.
What is the right notion? Purified of thoughts or purity of thoughts?
There is no such notion as purity of thoughts. Do you understand? There's the notion purified of thoughts. That is, a thought exists on its own. You use it like you use a computer. For example, a laptop. You take it and you use it, or a tablet, but they don't dominate you. Yet, tell me, can people understand this? Until he acquires these skills, until his personality stands, let's say, on the other side of the door, when the whole world is already in front of it. He can peep through the open door in that theater and tell what to do on the stage. For instance, there, I have something, bring it to me while I'm here. Or, do something. Whereas, if personality is sitting on a chair, taped to it by those actors, well, what do we want from it?
Igor Mihailovich, these actors on the stage are a crowd of, let's say, characters, right?
These are individualities. Well, we can say so. Let's again take the example of mental categories, material, three-dimensional ones. Again, we return to this for skeptics, for those who will sit and analyze what we are talking about here in order to laugh somehow. Again, who will be watching us and be skeptical? Actors. Actors enjoy laughing at other actors. We perfectly know that. They simply feel bad when someone is more successful and the like. Thus, these actors start to invent something in order to disgrace them in some way. While discussing our program, they will raise this point too, won't they? That's why I will explain more intelligibly and calmly. Everything is matter. Information is matter. To put it correctly, every thought is material. Right? Right. Every thought is material. And we have lots of thoughts. Hence, what is it? A crowd. Right?
Right.
And only one of this representative office, of this theater, can go on a business trip abroad to the spiritual world, to stay there as a permanent resident. The whole theater won't be admitted. So, what to do? What do you do in such a case? You have to leave them here and go on your own, right? Something like that. In this regard, there are even many parables and the like. It's when a disciple came to a sage, he said, "I'd like to talk to you about wisdom." And the sage said, "Get rid of the crowd. Take your crowd and leave." "What crowd?" He turned around. "I'm alone here," he said. But then he looked inside himself and understood that, indeed, he was thinking about his wife and about his children and about his friends and about everything. Well, this is exactly crowd. It's their images. Well, he left. In a year, he had to sit outside the sage's house for a year. A year passed, and the sage came out. "Come in. Now you are ready. Now you are alone." Again, there is an interesting point here. We see such term as a year. If people trace it, those who are interested, in many cases, they will see a year, a year, a year. Why does a person need such a period of time in order to conquer his thoughts, conquer the demon or something else? A good question. Because, all the same, there is some kind of attachment, so a person needs time to quit. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you start working and in a year you will quit. No, many people struggle throughout their life. They know, understand, realize everything, but they cannot abandon their actors. They have such a love. They don't want that. They like an illusion on the stage more than the world behind the door. While many are simply afraid because actors are telling them, if you go outside the door, dogs will bite you there. Where are you going? It's raining outside. Are you crazy? Sit here and listen. We will tell you a fairy tale. Hence, the 1001 Nights, as always.
By the way, consciousness always scares and suggests defending oneself.
It is its function. Naturally, of
That
course.
is, it suggests defending some illusory statuses, authorities, even something non-material.
Well, it's consciousness. I'm just saying, those who don't study it, those people neither notice nor understand that. But when a person really begins to observe, takes a pen and writes down every single thought, monitors what, when, at what time it comes to his mind, especially if several people are sitting at the same time. Well, such a game. Just as a game, a thought comes. You write it down, another thought comes. You write it down. They are just sitting and writing down thoughts that come. Then they compare, and it may be very funny. You see, as if someone is sitting and telling them all in a megaphone. Well, everyone has their conventionalities, but the essence is basically the same, and it comes almost at the same time.
So it's not necessarily an identical thought, but...
No. How come? Thoughts cannot be absolutely identical. Let's say my consciousness, my actors will show me one thing. Why? Because they are fat, old, and lazy. You see, yours are younger and smarter. They will tell you the same, but in a bit funnier, more interesting and different way. Understand? These are all the differences. Well, they might have different clothes or something else. They look slightly different, but the essence which they tell us about will be the same.
So consciousness just gives a bit of some state, and then everyone's brain.
It's not everyone's brain. Brain does nothing, in fact. The brain function is ridiculously, absolutely simple. I hope someday people will understand and study this. It may seem difficult, but in fact, it's very simple. That's what concerns our thoughts and everything else. It's difficult when it comes to its work with the body.
Here, yes, it's a well-established mechanism, whereas when it comes to consciousness, it's very simple, while consciousness is complex and simple at the same time. Yet, people won't get to it soon. Thank God.
Igor Mikhailovich, you've said that there is basically such term as a year, right? For getting rid of the demons. Can a person do that faster?
They can instantly pass, just instantly. Many don't even have to waste time. They feel. He just feels the slightest wave. Fresh air. It's like, when a person is hungry and suddenly he smells meat pastry, he stands up and runs for it. The same is with these people. Fresh air draws them. While here, there are actors, sweaty and dirty. A person feels fresh air, stands up and runs outside. That's all. He has nothing to do here, listening to their fairy tales. Well, there are exactly such people. While there are some people who get distracted. A person stands up, he gets distracted again. Something attracts his attention. His actors distract him. He takes a seat again and listens to them. He thinks he will listen to the end, for they actually argue with each other. And it's interesting what the end will be. Why hurry? I will have time. Here's the door. Thus, he just stays with them until the theater is ruined. They get blocked, and then they lie together under the ruins and recall their past. This is subpersonality.
Igor Mikhailovich, there is such an opinion that in order to get outside the door, you need to lose your individuality, meaning it's as if you gradually remove, throw off trumpery, and you are already nothing. And so, or is consciousness afraid to lose?
That's what consciousness tells people. It always says that you will lose yourself. But in reality, when personality gets outside the door as a viewer, I mean totally, after the death of the body, it loses its actors. Why would it need clowns when there is the real? Why would it look at an illusion when there is reality? Why would it cling to the temporary when there is the eternal? Therefore, consciousness is doing everything possible to prolong its existence, even under the ruins of a building, even in the state of subpersonality. But it's life for it, while for personality, it's death.
So you have to throw everything off and leave only purity, to give consciousness everything that belongs to it, because everything you need is purity and sincerity only.
What does it mean to give? For as long as a person is here, for as long as he lives in his body, for as long as he is, let's say, with his consciousness, with his group of actors, of this circus, let this circus work for him. He should simply be the director of this circus, not the viewer. Then there will be order. And he should start living here. If a person doesn't start living here, he won't gain life there. This is true. And many people know about this. I mean, those who got outside the door of this theater.
Perhaps personal experience will help. Those moments when consciousness begins, to scare and suggest some scenarios of defending oneself or something else. Well,
Defending its personal interest.
defending some personal interests at that moment.
This is, so to say, let's call it actors' trade union for convenience.
Actors and trade union. When the actors' trade union is defending the interests
The rights of its actors.
of actors, yes, at that moment you realize that you actually don't need anything from this trade union.
Absolutely right. And you don't need anything from the actors either.
That all you need.
But at the same time, do you remain individual? You do. I answered this question more than once.
So everything that remains with you is your sincerity, purity, and commitment to God.
Everything that remains with you is eternity in the boundless world. But the most important thing that remains with you is happiness and endless burning love. True love. Well, I don't mean burning like fire, but rather how to convey this feeling with our ordinary human words. Well, boiling, seething, right? But this is still an association. I'm actually taking this as an example, burning love. Still, the association perceived by our consciousness is a burning sensation, pain, or something else, right? While many people used this word, as we have already said, to denote exactly the burning or fiery love, which was understood as strong love. So, it's a reinforcement of this notion in order to translate it for this world. And you see how consciousness misrepresents everything. It turns out it will burn and you will feel pain. No, it burns here, not there. It's just difficult to express certain things.
You say the same words while the state
Well, the state cannot be transmitted through camera.
different.
Yes, this is clear, while words are not always appropriate, like bricks for describing the air.
Igor Mikhailovich, people ask a question: how to be guided by the will of God and manifest it in purity here, in this world.
It's a question from the mind, just a question from the mind. When a person is in purity and freedom from consciousness, he will always manifest the will of God. There is no other way.
So one needs to hear God, right, in order to...
What does it mean to hear God if it's the world? Well, difficulties arise again, don't they? And there are plenty of reservations and misunderstandings. It will be difficult for people to understand. Why? Because actors won't be satisfied. They will say, "What is it? You should explain it here and now. Make it clear, like in instructions." Right?
Everyone follows their path.
And makes their choice.
Igor Mikhailovich, viewers requested to ask the following question. Does God exist?
No, God doesn't exist. It is us who exist here, while God lives.